Regulatory entrepreneurship is a term coined by Paulman and Berry in 2017. And in essence, it means that by breaking the law in creating a company in a legal gray area, you then later can change the law. So if we take a look at some of the companies involved, we can see Airbnb, Uber, Tesla, DraftKings. These are blurring the lines between business and changing the laws and regulations, and there are tactics that are used. And so some of the key tactics are to identify any legal gray areas, to grow very quickly so that you can't ban them. So we call this, too big to ban. Also mobilize the users for political support. So get on social media, get people to back your product. And so some of the factors that enable this are well-funded, scalable startups that are appealing to the public. We also can think of targeting state and local laws instead of national, right? Because it could be much more difficult to go against a national law. And then litigation is more political than it is legal. And so some of the implications are there are lower participation costs for these companies. There also are, some policies that will be changed very quickly, but they could diverge from the public interest. And so these are some of the key questions: are how do these factors play into these companies? So if we take a look here at what's going on with these four companies, Airbnb, OpenAI, Uber, DraftKings, we can see these same patterns. And these apply to things like generative AI as well. Airbnb, obviously the company has profits in billions in valuation, and so they've returned something for their founders and investors. But society has to pay for the loss, and the loss is a loss of affordable rental housing units globally. And so that's a negative externality. Uber, we can look at the $50 billion valuation, and the VCs were able to get their money. But in terms of a loss, society, and if we take a look at San Francisco in particular, you can see that there's increased traffic congestion and emissions, right? So not only is global warming increased from the exhaust, but also the emissions harm the local residents who are going to ingest that pollution, and the congestion as well is a negative externality that society has to pay for. Nobody is compensated for that. Likewise, we can see DraftKings. There's a multi-billion-dollar fantasy industry, but now we have more people addicted to gambling. There's more personal bankruptcy, and so society has to also pay the fees for that. So, for example, if somebody is able to spend their money gambling and they can't afford to pay their mortgage, then their family is thrown on the streets, right? That's the negative externality in a very extreme scenario, and society has to pay the burden for that. Likewise, with companies like OpenAI and generative AI, obviously there's some great things that are happening in terms of the advancements of generative AI, and there's also profit, but there's also a loss potentially. So the AI could be used for destructive things. Also, the artists who are their works are being used in a copyrighted fashion to train the model. They also have some concerns as well. And so the cost of basically training on copyrighted data is a loss that society has to pay for. So regulatory entrepreneurship has actually been around for quite some time. You see this really as a pattern with venture capital, and it's really a TBD in terms of what will the future hold. Or will there be more regulation? Will there be less regulation? But you can see these patterns are typically there. Grow quick, too big to ban, huge funding, scalable, well-connected people that can lobby Congress. These are the patterns of regulatory entrepreneurship.